Hello friends and patrons, Rob Caskie, Engaging Storytelling. As you know, I've wanted for some time to mix up our offerings on Patreon to get away from your being subjected to looking at my ugly mutt always on screen. So we've tried to introduce some conversations, some interviews with some of our friends and so forth. And today I'm with Linda Thompson, an acknowledged and very respected speech therapist in Cape Town, heads up a wonderful family. We were lucky enough to meet Linda and her delightful husband David in the Cederberg Mountains here in the Cape at a place called Bushman's Kloof. Now, Corin and my family often maintain that I tend to be loud, in one's face and so forth. These are all allegations that I deny emphatically. But Linda told us recently a rather amusing story about our meeting, how she never knew I was going to be the guest speaker and the storyteller, how she'd been coerced into going to the Cederberg, not knowing that it was going to be a weekend of historical storytelling. So I'm going to let Linda, in her own inimitable way, tell you a little more about that. Please share that with our friends,
Okay,
Linda.
so I really needed a holiday, and Dave said there's this fantastic place called Bushman's Kloof. You can relax, people will serve you food, you can have massages. I thought this is fantastic. He didn't tell me that there was a historian called Rob there who was going to do lectures. He kept dead quiet. So when we arrived, he said, look, there's a slight twist to our holiday. We're going to just get in a vehicle, be driven to a place, and we're going to be listening to a history lecture. Well, I couldn't believe it. I got into this vehicle because we're going to be driven to where the talk was. Rob was there, didn't know Rob had an excellent memory. I said, hi, I'm Linda, thought I'd probably never see these people again, but he remembered. And at the lecture, we were sitting there, it was absolutely beautiful, sort of full moon, stars, and I had a glass of wine next to me. And I thought, he will never notice when he's talking if I slowly reach down to the side and grab my wine glass. And so I sat there with very good eye contact, and I moved my body slightly to the right, and I was just on the rim of the wine glass, and he said, and you know Linda, with Rorke's drift, and I jumped out of my skin. I sat bolt up. I felt as if I was straight at school again, and I was getting into trouble. So I will never forget that talk, and it was excellent.
Oh, Linda, that is a great story, and thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed the talk. As David Rattray always used to say, fear is the key. And I think that folks in an audience are never aware of just how much the presenter or the speaker is aware of from their position up front, and how much we notice in terms of what an audience is doing. Now, Linda, you were born and raised here in Cape Town in the suburb of Bergvliet, and somehow along the way managed to meet David Thompson from Michael House, that prestigious school in the Natal Midlands. Tell us a little bit about that, because we always refer to the Bergvliet Bell and the boy from Michael House.
Yes.
It's a wonderful story.
Yes. So Dave and I met when we were at university. He was in Smuts, and I was in Fuller, which were the two reses on campus. And when you meet at university, you don't know each other's backgrounds, and it's actually a good leveler. And we met, and he said, well, actually, where are you from? I said, Bergvliet. He said, I have no idea where that is. And all I know is I think we paid 450 Rand a term for schooling, and he said his schooling at Michael House was 1 cow per term, which I suppose is about 30,000. So I realized there was a slight difference, but I'm not scared to take on a challenge. So we drove up to Natal, but what I didn't realize is the rules in a Bergvliet eating area, which is around the kitchen, where your mom is stirring pots, dishing it up, and you do the dishes afterwards, is very, very different from a Michael House lunch. Michael House lunch, there are hot and cold running servants and certain ways of eating. So one of the rules was that you weren't allowed to ask for any condiments at the table. You had to make sure that the person on the left and right of you had everything. Well, at Bergvliet you grab. So I had a horseshoe of condiments around me, and no one else had anything, and I thought this was fabulous. And I could see Dave looking a little bit concerned. He said, Mom, would you like something? She said, well, it would be nice if somebody passed. And then I realized, you can't just grab. It was a big learning.
Well, I tell you, David did extremely well to remain with you, and what a wonderful family you've created. It would be fair to say that Linda's 3 children, a delightful daughter, and then twin boys, are very Mediterranean looking, rather like their father. And as a result, there are many humorous stories that abound regarding Linda being asked, or in fact alleged, that the children may not be hers. So tell us a little bit about one or two of those stories, please, Linda.
So we actually went to those genetic testing, and Dave came out very sort of Northern Europe, sort of Italy, lots of Italian, and I came up with Norwegian, 11%. So that was very interesting. So we are very, very different looking. So our 3 children, Dave having the dominant genes, all take after and colouring with Dave. So when we go to Italy, people say, sorry, who do these Italian boys belong to? And I have to say, well, they're actually mine. And you can think they're saying delusional. And then, and the Italian girl, and I say, she's also mine. But we were all the way in sort of Vietnam, and we went into a chemist, and the bell rang, and we walked in, and I could see the lady behind the counter thinking, how does this work? So I walked up, and she said, sorry, who do these 3 children belong to? I said, they're actually mine. And you could just see, and I said, wait for the father. And then the bell rang again, and Dave walked in, and she said, oh, I know where they come from.
As only the Asians can. Now, Linda's very keen on musical productions, acknowledged speech therapist, does quite a lot in the singing and acting game, and recently had the occasion to be on a movie about Middle America. So I want you to tell us a little bit, please, about that, because this story is just wonderful.
So there was a movie called The Power, and we didn't really have to audition for it, but we had to be a member of quite a prestigious choir, and then you sent in your photograph. I think I had just been to a skin specialist that day, so I think I had a few marks. It wasn't the best photograph I sent in, but you never know what a film shoot is looking for. So they chose 40 of us, 10 sopranos, 10 altos, 10 tenors, 10 basses. And we had to go for rehearsals in COVID time. We had to sing with masks, with shields. We had to be a certain distance apart. All the directors were on laptops. And we had to double decode ancient text to sing, so we were all prepared. We bussed off to a place called Philadelphia, which is probably west coast, an hour from Cape Town. Hugely excited, really a proper set. 40 of us with probably 2,000 set members looking after us. Tents for breakfast, for hair, for makeup, for clothing. I thought I was doing really well. And someone came up and said, look, have you had any acting experience? And I just said, yes. She said, well, we'd like to give you a special part. And the part got bigger and bigger. And eventually I got a speaking part, and they were blowing cotton on me so that it looked an American scene, and was all going so well. And I thought, this is a little bit suspicious, so they really don't know me. I'm just going to find out why I'm getting such a lot of attention. Is it just natural talent? Am I just incredible? Or is there something else? So I went to the director. I said, look, I'm getting a lot of attention. What is this for? He said, look, it's Middle America. It's a white society. One couple has adopted a child of color, and the surrounding population is having difficulty with that. And we thought we would choose you because you look exactly like a Trump supporter.
Now, Linda, excuse my laughing, but I'm not quite sure whether that is a great compliment or not. But it makes for the most fantastic story in terms of where Linda's at now in her life, and this little acting debut in Philadelphia, and being told that she looks exactly like a Trump supporter. Now, Linda's children are all doing incredibly well in their respective careers. One's doing articles as a CA. The other 2 are lawyers. And of course, with COVID and the pandemic as it's been, almost everyone has been forced to work at home. So Linda, right now, is dealing with her husband, who's director of a law firm, and the 2 lawyer children being at home and working from home, and tells us that feeding the 3 demanding lawyers requires an awful lot of resilience and planning and patience. So tell us a bit about that, Linda.
So I share an office with my husband. So I'm a speech therapist, so I give children stars and smarties and no one can do any wrong. Dave sits opposite me at the desk and shouts and screams at clients all day long. But the good thing about Dave is he's really horrible at work, but as soon as he finishes and he comes down the passage, he's actually charming. Where friends of mine have said it's the opposite for them. They have their husbands sharing offices where they are charming at work, finish up work, and then horrible to the rest of the family. So I think I've got the best one. But our house just has rooms now with doors closed where you hear various negotiations going on, and I feel like the trolley lady. So I feel like I'm going on, knocking on the door, saying, anything on the trolley? And then they swearing and suing, and then it's never quite right. So I actually have a huge sympathy now for trolley ladies, because one of the lawyers is a vegan. And even though I buy vegan stuff, he takes out and he scrutinizes the label and he finds one ingredient that isn't vegan there, and then he won't touch it, and I have to start again. So you've got to be very, very patient.
Well, I salute you for that. And I've got to tell you, you certainly have the best deal in terms of your husband being perhaps firm, for want of a better word, and he uses that word often. I'm firm with clients, and I'm very nice to my family. And I think there's a lesson in that, rather than these folks who are charming to their clients and tyrants at home.
Yeah, no, it is. And my daughter, who's working for a law firm in Johannesburg, she sometimes calls me at the door. She says, listen to how he's talking to them. If I was spoken to like that, I would burst into tears. And then at that moment, Dave looked into the screen and he said, put your pen down, I'm talking to you. He said, first listen, then write. And Amy just fled down the passage. She said, that's too much for me. It's too much.
Well, look, Amy is a tough cookie. She's a gorgeous young woman, but she's a tough cookie. And to make a comment like that regarding her dad, I think is very telling. So, Linda, we are so enjoying our time here with you in Cape Town, as we always do. And I really appreciate your agreeing to have a little chat like this to screen. I know that my listeners and followers on Patreon are going to thoroughly enjoy your stories and your charming presence, as we do. And thank you very much for this time in front of the camera today.
Absolute pleasure, Rob. I love it.